Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Potcotter, and you're listening to CallTalk for December 18th, 2024. Today's topic is From Insight to Impact, Unlocking Value Force Multipliers in CX. If you are tuning in live, we encourage you to join the show by asking questions. Here's how you do it. Email me at calltalk@benchmarkportal.com. I'd like to remind everyone that all of our shows are archived and can be accessed anytime at benchmarkportal.com. Now let's welcome the host of Call Talk, Bruce Belfiore.
Thank you, Alan, and welcome back to Call Talk, everyone. Today we'll be talking about value force multipliers in customer experience. I'll be interviewing Justin Robbins. Justin is a keynote speaker who dazzled our audience at Call Center Campus in Austin, Texas last May. He's an industry analyst and advisor specializing in customer experience transformation. With over 20 years of leadership across CX operations, he partners with executives to drive measurable outcomes and strategic growth. As founder and principal analyst at Metric Sherpa, Justin delivers actionable insights and proven frameworks that empower organizations to align CX strategies with business objectives. A recognized thought leader, he's also a trusted resource for navigating CX challenges and capturing opportunities in an ever-evolving market. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hey, Bruce. Thanks. It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to have you on. We've known each other for a long time, and you've really added a lot in terms of Call Center Campus and just into our industry in general. So we appreciate that about you. And you talk about something called Value Force Multipliers. Can you explain what that means and why it's important for our listeners as CX leaders?
Yeah, of course, Bruce. This is something that came out of the most recent research that I've been doing with enterprise CX leaders. Essentially, value force multipliers are these small, high-impact actions that they create outsized results when you apply them strategically somewhere within the customer experience. They're often not the things that become about sweeping transformation or even massive budgets. They're precise, almost surgical changes in these moments that matter most. The way I think of them often, Bruce, is that they're leverage points. They're the small shifts that if we move this just a little bit in one direction, suddenly we see greater improvements in customer satisfaction. Or, maybe by making this one small change, suddenly operational efficiency starts to go up, or we see revenue growth kind of be a result. To me, it's how do we find the things inside of our organization that cut through all of the noise, right? All of the data, and actually help us move the needle both for our business, but as well as our customers that we serve.
Okay, that's great. Could you give us an example of one of these multipliers that will bring it home to our listeners? Then I have some more questions for you on this, because this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So I was talking to a friend who, at the time, he was the head of customer and technical support for a drone manufacturer. And we were sitting down to dinner, and he asked me if I had any idea of the number one reason why people called into their contact center. I was like, I don't even know why do they call? And he said, flyaway drones. He said, let me make something clear, Justin. I'm intimately familiar that flyaway drones are the number one reason why people contact us. My agents are intimately familiar with that being the number one reason. And he said, what's our obligation to those customers when they call in with a flyaway drone? And I'm like, what is it? He said, too bad, so sad. Do you want to buy a new one? He's like, and they don't, right? Once their drone flies away, they're upset. And his agents, they were doing one of two things on those calls, either trying to talk down this frustrated, upset customer, or potentially try to give them a discount on buying another drone, and that was mostly unsuccessful. He was saying he was sitting in this meeting, and it was cross-functional, and the topic of the meeting was to understand why consumable sales weren't kind of at the level this organization expected them to be. Consumables for a drone manufacturer, things like batteries, replacement blades, things like that. He's a bit of a smart aleck, and in this meeting, he said, well, nobody's buying those things because they don't own our drones long enough to need them. And around the room, you saw product people, marketing people, sales people kind of look in his direction. They're like, what are you talking about? Nobody outside of the contact center realized that flyaway drones were the number one reason why people contacted them. And so cross-functionally, they said, what does it mean for us to solve the flyaway drone problem? They made some changes to packaging, some instructions. They made it easier for people to kind of access and learn, how to be a pilot of a drone. And a little bit more than 6 months later, after making some of these changes using a cross-functional group, not only did flyaway drone calls decrease by nearly 50%, but word of mouth went up because people were enjoying their drones. They were posting videos, they were sharing on social media, but also consumable sales and other purchase kind of patterns improved. So here you see this bi-directional shift on something that when it was kept inside of the contact center, all they were trying to do was just spend as little time as possible. They weren't asking the question of what would it mean for us to prevent flyaway drones in the first place. That to me, I think is a really good example of a value force multiplier in action.
Yeah, because what you're doing there too is coming up with an insight on something that's extremely important. And I imagine what you mean, just so that our listeners understand, a flyaway drone is one that it gets out of control because it's sort of going out of zone or something like that, and then goes down, and then people can't find it anymore. Is that the problem?
That's exactly right. Up, and away it goes.
Okay. And so here you've got this situation where the other people in the organization weren't even aware of it. And so that points to problems with silos, right, where they aren't communicating with each other properly. And they need to break down those silos so that there's regular communication. And this sort of thing doesn't have to reach epic proportions before people who need to know actually find out and do know.
Absolutely.
And then, they need to actually do something about it. In other words, to implement the insights. And can you make some broader comments about that? Because we see that as well, where people struggle to act on, right, the insights that there are. What's the disconnect, and how can you bridge the gap on a more institutional basis?
Yeah, I think the biggest barriers or the biggest disconnect are around this age-old problem of analysis paralysis, but I also think it's a matter of a lack of ownership. From my observation and my conversations with leaders, there's no question about the massive amounts of data that they have, but then you see all of these cross-functional or even inside of departments, these debates on what it means, or even worse, one team kind of hoards all the insights and then nobody else actually knows or sees what's happening, as was the case with the flyaway drone problem.
Oh.
So you've got it stuck there, and then no one actually feels responsible for taking action. I think one of the greatest challenges about I'm going to call it the customer experience movement, is for a lot of organizations, you have cross-functional overlap in terms of the customer's journey with a brand, but then functional leaders may have objectives or requirements or goals that they're going after, right? The way a sales team is incentivized is different than marketing, is different than operations, is different than logistics. So I think that lack of, single owner then kind of creates that general lack of ownership. And for me, bridging the gap really starts with having clarity and accountability kind of at the foundation and in place. It's things like, what are the specific insights that we can tie to business outcomes? How do we make sure we've got cross-functional teams that are actually assigned to own specific actions? How do we empower them with the tools, the authority, the processes to actually implement change? I think with value force multipliers or anything right now, organizations that are being successful are seeing that action is beating perfection every single time.
Okay, so let me just push a little bit farther on that, because for our listeners, okay, what are some practical steps they can take to identify their own value force multipliers? I think you've given us sort of a really good foundation here, but there's some additional insights you can give them in terms of using this concept in their own organization.
Yeah, to me, there are 3 steps they can take that would make a huge difference. The first is to build, I almost call it like a reflex around spotting patterns. These are the things that are the recurring issues, whether it's feedback, it's service tickets. What's a mechanism that you can have in place where people can spot and talk through the problems that are piling up, where customers get stuck frequently, right? Those are often the prime areas for value force multipliers. and we don't have a formalized mechanism for people to spot patterns to bring them to their leaders' attention. And this could be as simple as, basic voice of employee programs. I've done it as cheap and cheerful as, hey, at the end of every day, let's have a formalized email that you send your supervisor or you send your leader, and it's just talking about what are some of the common things that you see coming up. So number one is muscle memory around spotting patterns. The second step, I think, is having formal places for cross-functional brainstorming. We can't limit the conversation to just the teams that are at our customer interaction points, right? The customer service team or the support desk or even, field services tech. We've got to make sure that we're creating environments where marketing, operations, product can come together cross-functionally. To the case of the story on the drones, that solution was an unexpected place for that solution to arise. It was an accident. Had they not had that cross-functional meeting, and my friend just so happened to raise his voice there, that would have gone unheard. So do you have a formal time and space to have people cross-functionally come together? Mm-hmm. And the third thing that I'll just reiterate here is start small, but be ready to scale fast. I strongly encourage is if they want to take a step to make a difference, pilot a value force multiplier in a single department or at a single process, measure the impact it's having, tweak it if you need, and then roll it out more broadly. In my experience, one of the best ways to get others to take the step with you is to show proof, right? Having that proof will drive buy-in across the organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Situations that, I guess, pun intended, with the drones, sort of flying below the radar. Instead of letting it go below the radar, you're going to sort of bring it to the attention of all. And so, just another sort of step in this concept that you're giving us here is what challenges or misconceptions do you see when organizations try to use customer journey data to drive action?
Yeah, sure, Bruce. I think there's three again common traps that come to mind for me. The first, to the point of analysis paralysis, is just general data overload. I see so many organizations trying to act on everything instead of prioritizing a few key metrics that matter most.
Right.
Time and time again, I know you see this well. It's like less is more when it comes to meaningful action. And if they can clearly identify their proactive indicators of what's going to be successful, they're going to be able to drive greater impact. So being able to understand what is the least amount of information that's going to drive the greatest amount of action is one. Uh-huh. To me, there's this trap that I think of it kind of, I often refer to it myself as kind of the big impact myth. And what I mean is I talk to so many leaders that assume big results are only going to happen if they've got big budgets or major system overhauls behind them. And what I've seen time and time again is that value force multipliers prove that even small adjustments can deliver a huge return on investment. And often it's within existing changes, right? These are types of innovations that they're not new frontier. They're often incremental or adjacent to what the business is already doing. And I think the third trap, and you alluded to it, and I talked a little bit about it, is just departmental silos. God, this is like every week, sometimes every day in a week, Bruce. I'm talking to a team, and you're seeing that inside of their organization, you've got different teams working from different data sets, pursuing disconnected goals. And in all of these environments, even the best intentioned customer experience efforts stall out. So to me, the thing I underscore the most is what's the biggest trap? It's just not being aligned. Alignment is essential if you want to drive change inside of your organization, whether it's a value force multiplier or, honestly, anything.
Yeah, no, those are three great points there. And just going back to the first one, I'd like to just add something. It has to do with, customer journey mapping and that sort of thing, where, you're talking about the need not to not overcomplicate data instead of focusing on a few key metrics and understanding where the low-hanging fruit is in terms of results for your center. And I think some people in doing sort of journey or using journey data also get too far into the persona pit, I call it, because, there was something I was reading just recently where we're talking about personas, and somebody said, well, if you have somebody calling into an insurance company, health insurance company, it could be themselves calling in. They could be calling in on behalf of their parent, on behalf of their child, on behalf of their, siblings or something like that. And basically, the person posing the question thought that each one of those situations should be a separate persona that should be separately analyzed. Well, at a certain point, you can find some small difference, right, here or there, but the worth of that difference is going to be, increasingly small and insignificant. Basically, people want to be listened to and have their situation resolved, right? And overdoing it with the sticky papers and the persona definition, in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, really can be getting into the weeds and overcomplicating it, as you put it, overcomplicating the situation, not to the benefit of the call center, but actually to the detriment. And it's, that's where you get into analysis paralysis, as you called it.
Yeah,
So,
and quickly on the persona front, one of the other, I think, challenges there is you've got too much rooted in the hypothetical. Customer journey map is going to be best served when you can take it through the eyes of the customer's story. If you look at the customer's story through their own eyes. And I think the more real data, real customer examples that you can use as you pressure test your customer journey map, the better. I remember one site, Bruce, I went and visited them and they were so excited to show me this big visual persona and customer journey map that they had done. And I asked them, now that it's complete, what do they do with it? And I think they show it to people on tours of their center. They wasn't driving any action. And that to me is that's the biggest part of all of this is like the purpose of a journey map isn't to create a journey map. It's to drive an outcome. So are you crystal clear on the outcome you're trying to drive? And then are you unapologetic in pursuing the inputs and insights that will help you get to that outcome?
Right. And, it's you called it the eyes of the person calling in. And it's the eyes, the ears, the emotions of that person. And the thing is, at the end of the day, overcomplicating it doesn't do anything because the person calling, it doesn't matter whether they're a sibling, they're a parent, they're a son or daughter, whatever it happens to be, they're going to want an outcome. And, basically really good service is probably going to be really good service for any of those quote unquote personas. And you don't have to overanalyze it in order to get a really good result. Well, anyway, asking you are there any other real world examples that you'd like to share with regard to VFMs, as we call them?
So there's one more I'll mention, and this is outside of the context in our industry. And what's funny to me about this one is similar to the drones. It was an accidental value force multiplier, and that somebody started doing something. They were empowered to innovate a little bit, and ended up becoming a corporate-wide initiative. So Chick-fil-A, if anybody's ever been to Chick-fil-A, we probably all know about their service that they provide. But one of the interesting things about them, and actually a number of other organizations like them are from a corporate standpoint, from a store standpoint, they have a pretty tight eye on a number of performance metrics that have to do with drive-through times, how long you're at the service window, how long food takes to prepare, things like that. And there was one particular franchisee who recognized that the barrier to them improving their drive-through times was actually the number of chicken sandwiches that they could fry at any point, right? You only have so many fryers, therefore you can only fry so many chicken sandwiches. You can only get so many people through the drive-through. What this particular franchisee owner recognized is that they could double stack their baskets. So they could fry twice as many chicken sandwiches at the same time, ultimately, speeding up the number of people that they could serve, especially doing through their rush things. They didn't ask for permission. They just took the tools and resources that were available to them. They piloted it out. And fortunately, their district manager and other leaders were like, "What is it about this store that they're outperforming others in their market so significantly?" And it's because this one person had taken this innovation of double stacking baskets.
Mm-hmm.
I use that as another example because one of the things that can be challenging to get started is to immediately get a bunch of cross-functional people to buy in and believe in your idea for driving exponential change in your organization. But what I know time and time again is that people who work in and with the contact center intimately have those double stacked basket moments as they hear and see what the customer's experiencing, but they often hesitate to try their idea or to take smart calculated risks or to pilot it in intentional ways. And I think that to me is one of the important reminders for everyone listening to this today, is that you probably have some ideas. So what would it mean for you to fail fast on actually giving that a go?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's another great story. And you oftentimes think about how do you remove roadblocks with customer experiences. And here the roadblock is literally for the drive-through. So it really works good. So how can organizations sustain momentum after they've identified their value force multipliers? In other words, what would be a key to sort of continuous ongoing improvement in terms of these operations?
Yeah, I think sustaining them and seeing success and buy-in across the organization comes down to, first and foremost, integrating them into goals. They've got to be part of a team's KPIs, their performance reviews, quarterly targets, so they stay front and center. This idea of only measuring and talking about everything that's happened in the past, for our organizations, I think is far too common in contact centers. How can we have goals that are around people identifying and contributing to ways that we can kind of force multiply the value that we provide to our business and our customers? So integrating into goals is one. Second for me is having regular reviews. It can't be something that's a set it and forget it. I think having a cadence to revisit data regularly, to look for emerging value force multipliers and adjust the strategy as needed is really important, having that cadence of regular review. And the last bit for me is celebrating wins. If you have a VFM succeed, recognize that team publicly, keep motivation high, prove out and celebrate the stories where small changes create big impact. That's the intent of value force multipliers. Where are those things that we can make small incremental changes that have that outsized return? When we make that happen, celebrate it inside of your organization, tell those stories.
Right. And there are many things like that do come up, whether it has to do with coming up with a better way to get information in two places that needs to be in two places instead of a cut and paste that's going to take a ton of time from one legacy app to another. I'm sure you've had an opportunity to consult people through that situation, as have we. But looking at situations like the double basket for the chicken fryer is a great way to illustrate the concept as well. It happens that I live in Santa Barbara, California, and this is the birthplace of the Egg McMuffin. And that was a situation where the local franchisee wanted to be able to open for breakfast in order to get more leverage in terms of his investment here. And so he created the Egg McMuffin. And for a long time, or for a while anyway, it was just sort of a local secret. And then finally it went national. So that's the kind of, innovation that can come out of people thinking about these things. Well, Absolutely. Let me ask you too, why is it critical for CX leaders to move beyond theoretical data analysis and focus on the measurable, actionable outcomes? You've given us some good reasons why. Are there any others you'd like to share with us? I'm sure there will be three, right?
No, I'm not. Gosh, it's funny. Somebody was teasing me yesterday about. I like. It's easy to recall in threes. Look, Bruce. For me, theory is easy. Action is everything. Our customers, they don't care about our analysis. They don't care about the research reports that we're reading or commissioning. What they care about is having better frictionless experiences with our organizations. And in the same side, our executives aren't investing in ideas, they're investing in results. I think if every single one of us can have this just again unapologetic focus on how do we create measurable, actionable outcomes, whether it's through value force multipliers or anything that we're doing in our business, right? Then when we do that and we can translate those insights into improvements that our customers feel and that our business leaders value, that's the type of stuff that not only drives measurable outcomes, but it also shifts the perception that still exists today that the contact center is just a cost center. It can actually shift that perception into it's a growth engine, right? It's part of the economic driver of how the organization is successful.
Right. And I think that sometimes we as managers could be more creative in terms of sort of tucking the innovations we want to see and we want to get financed through budget into the concepts that really grab the upper management. So whenever we can tie things back, for instance, to the mission statement of our organization, that can help out a lot. If we can tie it back to other innovations that have happened in the past and that that your senior management is very much proud of, that can help out too. So yeah, there's a lot of ways of doing that. Well, we're starting to run short on time, but I have got a couple more questions if that's okay.
Absolutely.
As we look to the future of CX, what role do you think that your VFMs and actionable insights will play in shaping the industry? I mean, I can say for myself that I'm really excited to see what Value Force Multipliers will do for people in our industry, for colleagues in our industry going forward.
I think the biggest realization I had as I've been spending more and more time with enterprise organizations and talking to cross-functional leaders about how they're seeing and thinking of the role of the contact center, and even more broadly, what customer experience is and can mean for their organization. They're recognizing that the traditional measures of value are pretty limited in how they actually think about the impact that all these types of interactions can have on our business. Is it really just about cost saving? Just about incremental improvements to customer satisfaction? It's not. It's about much more, and often exponentially more. There's all of these dominoes that fall every time something good, bad, or indifferent happens inside of our organizations. And as I've looked at how organizations that are successfully quantifying all of the impacts of just pushing one domino over, that to me is what Value Force Multipliers are about. And I think that when approached well, they can help redefine how anybody who's a customer experience leader or responsible for customer interactions, how they think about creating and measuring the value that they provide. I think looking ahead, of course, there's going to be impacts from artificial intelligence and predictive analytics. Like, their evolution of those capabilities will make it easier for organizations to identify potential value force multipliers. I think they'll get more precise in calculating the value. Even this week, I was talking to an organization who what they have done is essentially, further built a tool to better quantify the economic kind of not just the impact, but the implications of any decision in CX, right? What is the economic kind of ripple effect from that? So I think those types of things would enable companies just to stay ahead of customer expectations more intelligently, more accurately, I think is part of it. And to me, the biggest piece I'd kind of leave you with on this question, Bruce, is that the future of CX, from my perspective, is not about doing more. It is about organizations who understand how to do what matters most with intentional precision. I think Value Force Multipliers are key to making that happen. Really, this end goal for us, right, is how do we shift from being so reactive to being a proactive value engine for the business?
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. And just a thought that I had, and that is that a lot of this has to do with process shifts and process improvements, but there's also the mind shift that comes through as well as people look at, as people are involved with it, as they're brought into it, as they're engaged by their senior managers in what's going on, then the continuous improvement mentality comes in, and employees become part of the whole process, the value force multiplier process, in a really exciting and dynamic way. So thank you, Justin. This has really been a great session. We appreciate it. And do you have any last things you'd like to say before I hand things back over to Alan?
But Bruce, this has been awesome. I appreciate the time. I think the biggest thing that I would say is just an encouragement to everyone listening to this. I think I have seen more and more as organizations try to get cross-functional CX right. It's just creating a lot of tension inside of our organizations. And I would encourage everyone here to be kind of a force for positive change inside of their business. It's an exciting time, but it's going to be a challenging time. But I know really, really good things are going to come on the backside of this for everyone.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And with that, I'll hand things back over to Alan.
A big thank you to Justin and to Bruce for your engaging discussion on today's show. Don't miss our next month's episode for another fantastic show, or explore our extensive archive of past shows on hot topics at BenchmarkPortal.com. Simply click on Resources button, followed by the CallTalk, where you'll find over 15 seasons. From everyone at Benchmark Portal, keep those headsets steady and your fingers ready. This is Alan Pockhotter signing off. Have a wonderful day.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play, like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire. You can claim free daily login bonuses, too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we're all set for the party. I've trimmed the tree, hung the mistletoe, and paired all those weird-shaped knives and forks with the appropriate cheeses. And I plugged in the Bartesian.
Bartesian?
It's a home cocktail maker that makes over 60 premium cocktails, plus a whole lot of seasonal favorites, too. I just got it for $50 off. So, how about a Cosmopolitan or a mistletoe margarita?
I'm thirsty.
Watch. I just pop in a capsule, choose my strength, and...
Wow, it's beginning to feel more seasonal in here already.
If your holiday party doesn't have a bartender, then you become the bartender. Unless you've got a Bartesian, because Bartesian crafts every cocktail perfectly in as little as 30 seconds. And I just got it for $50 off.
'Tis the season to be jollier.
Add some holiday flavor to every celebration with the sleek, sophisticated home cocktail maker, Bartesian. Get $50 off any cocktail maker at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.